Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to Prime R. We are very, very sorry for the late start. We had some technical issues, but felt that we should do the program. However, short the time is for this edition, which is the last for the week. This evening, we are going to talk corporal punishment in schools and at home with the members of the Community Action Scheme. In Africa, CASAF, who are coming all the way from Limbe to share on what we have been observing in our schools and homes. We know of the story of what happened with some kids in a school in Douala some months back, where we saw a teacher actually torturing a child, not just one, two of them, and this teacher was later caught and taken by the forces of law and order, and we have recorded similar situations. Last week I had my friend whose son was also tortured, and she had to take this child to the hospital, and it brought a lot of problems with the administration of the school, and we have lots and lots of similar cases happening in our houses. So we felt that we should address it with those who are involved in handling cases like that. That is why this evening we are going to be discussing this very important topic with Ms. Abungha Joy, who is a communication officer of the Community Action Scheme for Africa, CASAF. Good evening, Joy. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. We are very happy that you have us here in your program. Though it is late, we are very grateful that you finally received us. Thank you.
We also are in the company of Mr. Adolf Mbonyam. He is the Executive Director of CASAF. Good evening, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Leo.
How is it?
Well, fine, thank you.
It's not been easy for you guys to get to our studios, but we thank God you're here. When we talk of corporal punishment, what do we understand in the house and in school?
Corporal punishment actually involves children being hit with a hand and with objects.
Okay.
Children being forced to take uncomfortable positions, like pick a pin, sit on the wall, and other degrading of treatment given to children. I think this is what corporal punishment actually entails.
And degrading, you think it's degrading to put children through this?
Very degrading, Mr. Leo, because I think that there are many national and international instruments that denounce the use of torture and other degrading punishment against children. We have the National Education Guidelines, which strictly outlines and guarantees that the moral and physical integrity of children are guaranteed in and out of schools.
Okay, but Ms. Joy, some persons think that corporal punishment strengthens the child. They quickly refer to what the Bible says, that you either spare the rod and spoil the child. How efficient is corporal punishment in instilling discipline in children, because that is the objective?
Okay, when we talk about corporal punishment, we talk about inflicting of pain on children by an adult in general, whether it's a caregiver or a parent or a teacher. Now, so many people have used the biblical backup that, especially the book of Proverbs, that the child has to be hit in order for him to take correction, or in order for him to take compliance. But we have to also recall that the book of Proverbs was written by King Solomon. And King Solomon wrote this book in his time from his own experiences and from his own wisdom. And at that time, he had a son called Rehoboam, who was a truant son, or an indisciplined son, as I can say. And because of the fact that King Solomon had to use corporal punishment on his son Rehoboam, the Bible finally records it at the end of the day that Rehoboam became a very much hated king by his own people, in such a way that they had to chase him away from his own kingdom into Jerusalem in order to go and seek refuge. That just simply tells you how much corporal punishment has a negative effect on children. If we talk about sparing the rod and spoiling the child, sparing the rod and spoiling the child is even a phrase that was created by a poet in 1664. Actually, what the Bible says is, he that spareth his the rod spoileth his child, and he that loveth his son chasteneth him. Chasteneth him meaning that you come together to reason together. You don't use a rod to beat your child and chase him away. You instead try to bring him, you try to reason together, and you find ways in order for you to solve the problem. You don't solve a problem by bringing another problem. You solve a problem by thinking critically and trying to find a solution towards that problem.
Okay. Why do we always want to get back at using corporal punishment when we think of straightening a child for teachers and parents? Why did we in the past feel that that was the best way to correct children?
Well, Mr. Leo, I don't want to go very far back to the past, because I believe that this is not the time that we have to rely on religious or even cultural stereotypes.
Yeah, but persons, I think that many persons who are watching us need to understand what the objective was, and then you prove how it has not worked.
Well, some people have the assertion that when you hit a child, you can actually get them to actually manifest the desired behavior. Some people think that they can drive them to compliance, but this is a wrong perception, especially because research has proved the contrary. And of course, what is happening in our schools today is a sign. It's a wake-up call. It's not the red flag that things are not going well, and corporal punishment is proven counterproductive, and we have to be open to adopt new ways of positive discipline to bring back the peace and translate that we used to have in schools.
Now, it is a form of, do we see it as a form of violence on the child? Is it also disrespecting the right of the child, and also knowing that we are in a context in Cameroon and Africa? How do we explain that you are trying to straighten the child, but it is seen as violence on the child?
I'll ask you a question, Mr. Liu.
You want to come before?
Okay.
Yes, I want to say that, first of all, corporal punishment violates the right of a child.
Okay.
Expressly violates the right of a child. We have mentioned the National Education Guideline for Cameroon, which guarantees moral and physical integrity of children. And there are also other international instruments that actually denounce, like the Convention on the Rights of a Child, which is a convention that is duly ratified by the Cameroon government, acknowledging that children have rights. And of course, because children are thinking humans, they are humans themselves, human rights is universal. And we think that, Mr. Leo, the law has actually offered adults protection. That is why if I spank you now, I'll be taken to court and I'll be charged for assault. It means that the law is actually recognizes that when you hit somebody, it brings them pain, both physically and emotionally. And that's why the law is actually protecting the adults. We are saying that the law should actually protect children also, because they are also human. If the law is actually offering protection to adults, it should offer equivalent protection to children. So corporal punishment expressly violates the right of a child. To us, it denies the child the freedom to succeed in life, and even in school, because children cannot study in an environment of fear and intimidation. So corporal punishment research has proven that it decreases learning outcome. It actually affects negatively the cognitive ability of children. It means that a child who is actually experienced corporal punishment, low self-esteem, some of them actually drop out. It means that these children cannot have good, highly paid jobs. Some of them will become recalcitrant and take to drugs and even alcohol, which will result in them behaving in delinquent ways. So if you are inflicting capital punishment on children or corporal punishment, you are expressly violating the freedom to succeed for children.
Okay, you were going to ask me a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like he rightly said, that is it okay for you to hit your fellow adult man or but you think that it's not okay? I mean, is it not okay for you to hit your fellow adult man, but it's okay for you to hit a child? Because the truth is, if you hit me now, I can charge you for assault. But if you hit the child cannot charge you for assault because the child feels like you're stronger than him, you're bigger than him in terms of everything. So we think that the rights that are given to us adults should also be given to children as well.
You think that they don't have the right? You want the child to have the same rights like the adult?
I think that the children do not have the capability to respond to violence. They lack the capacity to respond to violence. It means that they are vulnerable. We are saying that if adults are given protection, children should be offered equivalent protection because they are even more vulnerable.
But let's take the case of Cameroon. Children who are in school today, how does the system protect them from what we are discussing today?
I think I've mentioned the National Education Guideline.
In Cameroon?
Yes, in Cameroon.
That
National
prohibits?
Education Guideline, yes. Okay. Specifically, Article 0098/004 of 1998. It says clearly that the law guarantees the moral and physical integrity of children in the education system. This is the Cameroon law I'm talking about. And if you look at even Article 350 of the Penal Code, which talks about the aggravation for those who are taking care of children if they have to use physical and degrading punishments on them. So this is the law actually protects children, but we are saying that there is lack of implementation of that law, and it is the action of using corporal punishment is proving counterproductive, Mr. Liu. If you look at what is happening in the schools today, this is simply because fear in itself triggers violence, and if teachers are still using corporal punishment, there is sufficient evidence, if not because of our values, at least because of what is happening. It is proven clearly that corporal punishment is counterproductive. You think
that it's because of corporal punishment that we have violence in our schools today?
We are not solely saying that it's corporal punishment that is instilling violence in school, but we are trying to say that corporal punishment is actually one of the factors that is causing violence in school, because like I said, violence begets violence. If you teach a child that spanking somebody is good, then that child will also adopt the attitude of spanking even his peers in school. So that's what we are just trying to say, that corporal punishment is just one of those factors that promotes violence in school and out of schools.
You mean so what do you expect teachers to do in cases of extreme stubbornness from the pupils or the students?
Actually, there are different positive discipline measures that teachers and even parents can adopt in order for you to train your child. But in order for you to instill these measures, you yourself have to be disciplined enough in order to instill these measures in your children. You have to be able to control yourself in order for you to teach your children self-control. You have to be able to teach them or model yourself in such a way that they adopt your behavior. Now, if a child is proving to be too stubborn, there are different ways that you can adopt apart from beating the child. Because the more you beat the child is just going to be compliant for that moment. But it does not mean that the attitude that you actually want the child to adopt has been instilled in the child. The child will just stop at that moment because he does not want to continuously feel that pain for the moment. But in the long run, that attitude is going to come back and he's instead going to become a delinquency in the society.
Okay,
just to add to what Joy has said, the truth is that we are saying that the times have proven us wrong, that corporal punishment is not working because it is resulting in aggravating violence in schools. And Mr. Leo, the truth is that there are other positive discipline techniques that we can use.
Yeah, which we are going to be discussing. Let's just get a reaction from Boya through Tiku Felix on this subject.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and good evening to the entire panel. Mr. Leo, first I would like to say the way God made and placed man on the surface of the earth is not just for nothing. God knows why he puts the black man in Africa and gave him the sun, while he puts the white man in Europe and gave them winter. God knows why he gave them hamburger, salad, and pizza as a very serious meal, why he gave us gari, pounded yam, fufu corn as our own very serious meal. He knows why he gave us, respectively, the attitude and the mindset that we have. I'm talking of the Africans and the people, the Westerners, as the people of the West, the Europeans or the Americans. So, our ways are different from the ways of the people of the West. I'm saying so because I know the white man will give you an answer which is quite contrary to mine. And this is no doubt based on where we come from and also the fact that we know what works best for us. Mr. Leo, corporal punishment in homes and schools is far more than valid and will continue to be valid. Spare not the rod and spoil a child is not a suggestion, but a command. What works in Africa, especially where I came from, is the hard way. I'm talking about the cane, the slaps, the conks or knocks or cracks on the head, the whips. No amount of shouting will put a real African child to order. Mr. Leo, it may just stop them for a while, especially when they are involved with causing an atrocity. It will just stop them for that moment, especially the boy child. But there is a guarantee that they must achieve their goal. The whip or whatever method that is being used to inflict us with pains is the only method that will put fear and respect permanently in the heart of an African child. Knowing that he or she will be beaten or be sent to pick a pin after an adventure or a crime will put a fear in that child that will prevent them from even venturing. Mr. Leo, corporal punishment is what caused most of us not to forget our homework in our school days. We know that. Just that fear that you'll be beaten, not just punished, be beaten, you'll be whipped, you'll be lashed with some strokes like 12, 24 on the buttocks, being backed by other huge classmates, will put this fear in you that there is no way you forget doing your punishment or your homework rather. You understand? That you will be punished to bring sticks or broom just meant nothing. It won't change anything. They will prefer to bring their brooms and their sticks and not do the assignment. But once a cane, a whip, pick a pin is mentioned, Mr. Leo, that child can never forget to do his or her homework. It is beating that made us today to respect our seniors. Because in the time past, in those days, Mr. Leo, when you don't greet a senior man, you cannot bypass a senior man. You cannot bypass an elderly. It is a crime in itself. And what will put us to order is the fact that if you don't do it, you'll be beaten. And this aspect planted a lot of morals in our lives. And should you be beaten, and or should you take the case to your parents?
Okay, Tiku Felix coming in there from Boya. I don't know whether you have a reaction to what he said.
Yeah, actually, what he has said is it's a hypothesis.
Okay.
And a false hypothesis, let me call it that way. Because the truth is that the first thing he has...
Those are stereotypes, misconceptions?
Yes, they are very serious misconceptions. Because the first thing he has mentioned that I caught is that is the white man's or the Western style of raising children. This is not true. If you talk about not inflicting corporal punishment on children, it is because these children have a right to grow and have a smooth transition into adulthood unhindered by any form of violence, including corporal punishment. And because human rights are universal, you cannot say it's the white man's thing. No.
Okay.
Human rights are universal, and we too.
So many persons are struggling to call to participate. Please just send a text message. So many of you are calling. Stop calling, please. Just send text message. I will read them out. in the course of the program.
Yes. So human rights are universal, and we cannot say it's a white man's thing. No, that's not true, because we too have rights to grow, and children have the right to grow and have a smooth transition into adulthood unhindered by any form of violence, including corporal punishment. The second thing he spoke about is fear, Mr. Liu. But I want to tell you that fear in itself triggers violence. I don't know if you have come across a video on social media of a child who was beaten by a dog. The dog was dragging the shoe, and then in reaction, the child had to beat the dog. And because the child started crying. And when then help did not come, what did happen? The fear went away, and she became violent. She held the dog and beat the dog. That's to tell you that fear in itself triggers violence. And violence is, of course, a reflexive response to anyone experiencing pain. Let me put that clear, Mr. Liu. Violence is a reflexive response to anyone experiencing pain. In the labor room, pregnant women have beat their husband and even spanked them. This is because they are in the process of experiencing pain. It means that anyone who is experiencing pain is most inclined to tend to violence. So if he says that fear will make children become compliant, that is not true. That is not true. Research has proved the contrary. That children have they will not resolve to doing what you ask them to do merely because you put fear or you have the cane. Corporal punishment, one thing I want to highlight is that research has shown clearly that it does not result in moral internalization of desired behavior. It does not. Because children in themselves have a will, and what we need to do is to teach them how to behave. Corporal punishment, on the contrary, teaches them that they should do, but they should not be caught. That is why some children will always run. That is coming, that is coming. Because that is coming, that's why they are behaving. They are not behaving out of their own free will because the behavior is correct, but because that is coming.
There is fear in them.
That is fear. So it means that it does not result in long-term compliance with desired behavior.
It's not spontaneous, it's not natural.
Yes, it's just, yes, exactly. So they don't do it, they don't behave properly in their own accord, but out of fear. Okay. It means that once you leave them on their own, they'll do the wrong thing again.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My name's Shea Emmanuel from Miselele. What? Stop calling, please. My name is Shea Emmanuel from Miselele. What I understand by corporal punishment is a must to punish a child, but not by flogging, instead by dry cleaning the classroom. That is this what you instead of flogging?
Yes.
Yes, we punish them differently.
Yes, you give them other methods of punishment, and these other methods of punishment can instead build skills in them. Like for example, if you tell a child dry clean this classroom, you're bringing organizational skills in the child. You're telling the child that you have to be neat. But if you hit the child is just going to stop that bad behavior for that moment. But in the long run, that bad behavior is going to resurface again. So you can give other punishments to the child. Maybe you're going to, like the whites use the word detention. They lock you up for a while. Like for us, you can decide that, okay, you are going to maybe do these chores. Your brother is not going to do these chores. You'll be the one to take care of all the chores for today. But it does not in any way inflict pain on the child. It instead helps to build skills in the child.
Okay. Good evening. In the studio, I'm called Abungha Princely Tsi, writing from Gaundere. For me, corporal punishment is not totally valid because children now are instead parents, because when a child is punished, he or she will think it's like you are wasting your time, or either the child will retaliate. Okay. This one says, I have a question, please. Don't you think corporal punishment is just a minor act in school as compared to what parents are teaching their children at home? Flogging is just what brings consciousness, so corporal punishment should be valid and not to be doubted. Okay, I don't know the meaning of that. One says, good evening, Mr. Leo and panelists. This is Eno Mulu Bath from Bomenda. Stop calling, please. Can you please ask your panelists to tell the audience and I the different measures to correct a child different from corporal punishment? Thank you.
Okay. That is, I like that question. And first of all, Mr. Leo, let me comment that most of the people reacting, they have spoken against corporal punishment, which means that they are beginning to gain awareness and consciousness of the negative outcomes of corporal punishment. The last person actually is asking a very important question. We are saying that there are other positive discipline techniques that could be used to discipline children. And one of the ways is, of course, to understand the child's problem and try to solve it. That's the first thing, Mr. Liu. I want to give you a very hypothetical case. We have children who, before they go to school, they have to fill maybe 100 liters of water. And we know, of course, that our water points are sometimes very far and overcrowded. Now, if this child has to fill this 100 liters drops of water, and then he goes to the tap, the water point is crowded, and he has to waste a lot of time there, resulting in the child coming late to class. Now, if this child comes late to school and the discipline master reacts by actually inflicting capital punishment, Mr. Liu, is there any guarantee that that child will not come late again the next day if that routine is not changed? It will not. It means that for you to guarantee that this child will not come late again is to actually go to their house, consent to the parents, and tell them maybe give this child allowance when they come to school. After school, they can do their home chores, but let them come to school on time. That solves the problem. But if you cane this child, Mr. Liu, the tendency is that the child will come late the second day. And when the child comes the second day, the tendency is that the discipline master will believe that they did not hit the child enough the other day. And that they get 12 strokes, they should give 24 strokes today. What happens? The child becomes very heated. They cannot learn. They go to class. There's pain in their boot, so they cannot sit properly. They are emotionally broken. They cannot listen to the teacher. And at the end of the day, what happens? They will either start being absent from school, or they will definitely have low grades because they cannot study in an area of intimidation or pain. So we are saying that there are positive discipline techniques. For example, children even are thinking humans. And so sometimes using the action of action and consequence can actually train a child how to behave. If children are able to take consequences for their own action, then they'll be able to make good choices. This is what we call executive function skills. And that if you actually have to discipline children by using the action and consequence method, it means that children will become more disciplined and they will be more prone to do the right thing out of their own accord, not because they are being pressured. Other positive discipline method actually setting participatively, jointly, setting ground rules with their children. It's not about telling the child, come to the house at 7. By 7, if I don't come here, I'm going to cane you. But, well, my son, is dangerous outside. And going up at night, you might have suffered this or that. And that is important for your own security to be home by 7 so that you don't find yourself in a very unsecured condition. Now, this child comes home because the father has told him that there is security issues out there, not because they have to be caned. So, setting common ground rules with children can actually bring about them obeying out of their own accord and making good decisions.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think corporal punishment is the best. Even the Bible says, don't spare the rod and spoil the child. You don't beat a child to kill him, but to correct him. Yes, you did not tell us where you're writing from. Good evening, sir. What Mr. Nip said is mostly likely 70%, if don't in the right way. The whip straightens Kunta Kinte and other black slaves. It's a means of correction. Let's not mix up human rights and domestic corporal punishment. Otto is writing there. I want to take this one from Yengong. Mr. Yengong, it is not directly related to what we are discussing, but what is happening in Bamenda as we speak. I read something about it. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and your entire crew in the studio. Just some updates concerning the women of Njirong who have been at the Northwest Governor's office for 3 days today. The women are still there and sleeping on bare floor. It should be noted that there have been 3 court declarations concerning this land dispute that have been there for some time now, and all in favor of the Njirong village, 2004, 2012, 2013 in Cambe. All Wimbum funds had a conference in Du in 2021, which after due examinations and consideration concluded and declared that this land belongs to the Njirong village. All the Wimbum elites in Yaoundé after a meeting in 2018 concerning this same issue looked into the matter, and after due examinations and considerations also concluded with a declaration that this land belonged to the Njirong village. Our question is, why should the Ntumbo people keep invading this land, not only for farming purpose, but killing people, destroying their properties, and burning down their homes? Is it that the Ntumbo village is above the laws of Cameroon? Julius is writing from Bamenda, and we have pictures of mothers from Njirong village that are currently sleeping. I'm sure this is night. They should be sleeping around the corridors of the governor's office in the northwest region. They want justice done to them. So we pray that something be done to our mothers from Njirong who are having problems with their brothers of Dubois about land. I'm sure farming land. You know, without land, our mothers cannot farm. I would like us to discuss this on Monday. Brother Julius, if you can get us to talk with some of the mothers who are at the Northwest Governor's office. I'd love to talk with some of them. Hello, Mr. Leo. Good evening. Our panelists are saying that corporal punishment has never corrected a child. What are the merits of human rights in the school milieu? Peter Mwam is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Juvett in Yaoundé, please let the guest give us the meaning of action and causing consequence method of discipline. I hope you guys are taking note so that you respond to them. Good evening to you all. The corporal punishment should be encouraged in children until the age of maturity, and also that we should not spare the rod and spoil the child. Bro Henry is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love the topic using a cane on a child once or twice. The child becomes used to it, so it's better to use other forms of punishment and not just the cane. Abiacha Cletus Abiache in Bifang, in Widikum, that should be in Momo Division. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Quite interesting program and nice panelists. Mr. Leo, I don't know why you panelists think only children's rights should be protected. Today, children are the ones giving corporal punishment to teachers. Ask your panelists how we can solve this problem. I haven't heard that a teacher has killed a student, but we keep hearing the reverse. Please let the panelists not shift all the rights to the children. Corporal punishment help to build African children, but it shouldn't be done in excess. Sumbele Kelvin, writing from Kongsamba. How do we find a balance between this? We see many children are going wild. We get so much violence in our schools today.
There is the issue of the fact that violence perpetuates itself.
Okay.
It means that if you teach a child the language of violence, they have to use the same language of violence, either for their peers or for others, including teachers. And that's what we have seen. But if, Mr. Leo, back in 1997, in my school, it's a surprise that my then principal already had an idea of the negative outcomes of corporal punishment. Because there was a section in the bylaws of the school that says that no student or teacher has the right to inflict capital punishment on another. And that we knew that it was completely forbidden, out of place. In fact, our school was a no-hit zone. Every student knew that our school was a no-hit zone, and that hitting a fellow student would result in outright dismissal. So our school was more peaceful. We never had such situations. And I'm saying that teachers should resent from using violence against children. It doesn't guarantee that desired behavior will be sustained. It doesn't result in any long-term compliance of desired behavior. So they should avoid using violence. If the students know that a teacher does not have a right to hit him or her, she will know that it's a no-go area for her to hit a fellow student, talk less of a teacher. So we are saying that they should keep violence completely out of schools. Okay.
We should keep it out of school. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I am enjoying your program. It's very interesting. Lumvera writing from Bamenda. Thanks. This one says, Mr. Liu, this is Mr. Gay from DC, USA. You may find that if you smack your kids, they will use physical aggression with others as a way of dealing with their problems. Yes. So this response can actually make things worse. Remember, a lot of your kids' behaviors are learned from you. By responding to misbehavior with aggression or physical punishment, you're essentially telling them that it's okay to hit and yell. In America, we have what we call timeout. Boring activities, ask them to do all the dishes or laundry. Gadget deprivation, no phone, tablets, or TV, nothing. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Gay from the United States of America. I was going to ask you about alternatives instead of disciplining the child. Like he says in America we have what they call timeout. Boring activities, ask them to do all the dishes or laundry alone. Gadget deprivation. These are actions that help to build skills, like you just said.
Yes, those are positive discipline techniques, like I rightly said. And I know people are going to say that that is the Western ideology and that it may not work for us. But why don't try it? Why don't you try it? Because us, the younger generation, we are so addicted to gadgets, especially phones and television. Once you tell the child that I am going to switch off that television and you're not going to watch it for 1 week, I bet you that child is going to start doing the things that you want him or her to do. But if you start using the stroke on the child is going to be like, okay, since you want to be beating me, you keep on beating me, but I'm going to do what I want to do. Rather using his right sense of judgment to do the right things.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo and the panelists. Let's talk reality. Violence today in school is because of too much of simplicity from the teachers. For example, teachers stay in beer parlors, smoke with students, and even brain some of them, making students see teachers more as mates rather than corporal punishment with limits instead helps the students. Joe George writing from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Juvett in Yaoundé. Please let the guest give us the meaning of action and consequence method of discipline.
Well, Mr. Leo, there's what we call enabling.
Okay.
If your child actually steals and is taken to the law and you bail them out, you are enabling them. It means that you have to do that over and over and over. But if he steals and you hand him over to the law, which we have a juvenile justice system to take care of him, the next time the child will choose whether he wants to actually be in conflict with the law or to stay with the family. So that's action and consequence. A very simple example I use is for my son. When he was 2, when the mother is beating pap, he wants to take the pap even when it's hot. And so when I realized that the temperature has gone down, but you still feel uncomfortable taking the pap, I asked him to go and take. And when he goes there and he touches it, he wants to have it, and he feels uncomfortable, he drops and he starts crying. And I call him, I say, come here. So I said, don't take the pap, it's hot, okay? He said, yes. So the next time, when the mother was beating the pap, I saw the young man going and trying to find the pap with his mouth, trying to blow the pap. Even though he has understood by nature that he cannot have a hot pap, so he wasn't crying anymore. So that's action and consequence. When I talk about action and consequence, it's allowing children to learn by exploring themselves. It's not actually saying you want to send children to go and do wrong things. No, it's actually allowing children to learn. That is the reality of life. That is the way they will grow. They will have to experience things and make right decisions. So you put a child in a position of standing in between right and wrong and choosing right. Because this is the reality of life. So why not start teaching children when it's early enough? Other than using corporal punishment and trying to drive them like cows.
Okay, instead of driving them like cows, Mr. Liu, punishment inflicted on a child, be it student or at home, is corrective and not punitive. I would strongly disagree with some of the things said there. The teacher exerts violence on students. They know the ethics of their profession. Enomolu, but it's the writing from Bomenda. But we have seen cases of excessive use of force, like the video that went viral of a teacher in Douala, who actually got the students heavily beaten and was even applying pepper and some other things. We've seen cases where excessive violence is also meted out on children who live with us, especially those children that are not our children. How do we fix this? Because this is happening and members of our communities are watching and can only complain. How do we, should this be reported and to who?
I think this is one of the things we are doing to raise awareness about the negative outcome of corporal punishment. People become more aware of the negative outcomes of corporal punishment, they will resent from its use. So we are saying that In the communities, our organization have actually carried out case management.
Okay.
And sometimes when we go out for child protection case management, we look at issues of neglect. And sometimes we can meet a child with unexplained wounds on their body, Mr. Leo. And so we start asking where is their parents. And sometimes I cannot see a child with a wound that is straight, as though it was done with an object, and you tell me that the child fell. No, that's not true. I know that a child cannot fall and have a straight wound. So it means that you have used an object to actually, and I'm able to verify, to investigate how that came to be.
Because maybe the audience members may really be not understanding what you are saying. We have children who, we've seen cases of children who have been killed, others living in terrible conditions. Conditions are from wounds and violence exerted on them by people with whom they live.
They are caregivers.
But how do we, in such cases, what happens in Cameroon? Who do you report it to? You look for their parents, you look for the police, you look to, how do we fix it?
The forces of law and order are there to look at those unlawful actions. And we have had a case of a mother who beats up the child very, very regularly, and the child is always left alone. And what we did was to go to the police, report the case. And the woman was mandated to bring that child every after 2 weeks or 1 month. Every after 2 weeks, she had to bring the child for inspection. They look at the child and see about the child's well-being, ask the child some questions, and feel if the child is actually responding out of fear or out of trauma, and to check if there are unexplained wounds on the child's body, whether the child is properly fed in terms of the nutrition, and to check for other proofs of neglect. And so when the woman did that, the behavior was adjusted because the woman was under judicial supervision. So I think that this is one of the ways that if there is a case like that, it's good to bring it out to the NGOs, for example, like us. We will take it to the police, or you can report directly to the police, and they will put the particular caregiver on that position. NGO? Sorry.
Yeah, NGO. What is it?
We are based in Limbe, in Adamu Street. That's where our head office is.
Okay. So if you are watching us and you know a case of abuse on children, violence on children,
yes,
please, you can get to them. They will handle the case. You may not be, maybe you are just watching a child suffering beside you and you may not know how to come in. We are not talking about simple issues. We're talking about serious cases of violence on children. Good evening, Mr. Leo. My name is Leo. I'm writing from Tico. Very powerful topic tonight. Those who are against corporal punishment are just trying to copy the European and American system, which doesn't work. For us, we grew in an environment of corporal punishment, and we are the better for it. Look at our schools today, students beating, stabbing, and murdering teachers. In our days, it was unheard of. The European and American society is morally bankrupt. Today, not respect whatsoever. The next thing these people will start advocating for will be for children to call police when parents discipline them. The earlier we see discipline, the better. Good evening to all. Is that not where the problem is? How do we really educate? What are you guys doing in the field? Do we really need to educate on how this discipline should be done in our homes and schools so that it actually fits our context? We know we are in Africa also.
Yes, like Adolf rightly said, we are creating awareness. And we understand that not everybody is going to accept this. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a process. But there are people that are already adopting these measures, and it's working for them.
Okay.
Now it's just left for those people who are drawing back with their stereotypes to join the train, because this train is actually a movie train that is working. If you ask the teachers, if you go to school and you ask the teachers who are more cordial with students, they will tell you that they have a way of managing them, which does not involve violence. But the ones that use violence, you realize that before the child wants to even come to school, he comes prepared. He comes with his weapon in his bag. He knows that, okay, if this teacher wants to try me today, I am going to deal with him. So it's just the same thing. If you try to reason with the student, if you try to reason even with your child at home, you try to understand the problem, you'll be able to solve the problem. Rather than you using violent methods, you will instead trigger the child to also use violent methods or aggressive methods against you.
Okay.
Our context. I want to look at that word, our context.
Okay.
And I want to emphasize that human rights are universal.
Okay.
Our context does not mean that we should look at, go back to the drawing board and look at those assumptions if they are working. If they are not working, they are not working, then we need to be open to adopt new positive discipline techniques, Mr. Leo. That's what we are saying. That if violence in itself perpetuates violence, we have said that so many times. And the truth is that children who have experienced violence approve of it. Those who have experienced violence approve of it as a way of getting what they want. So that is why using even corporal punishment is grooming a child to become a domestic abuse offender. Because a child who has been trained with violence knows that the only way to get what they want is to use violence. It means that when he disagrees with his wife, when he grows up, he will beat the wife up to get that acceptance of his own ideology, which is wrong. So the research has shown clearly that in societies where corporal punishment is prevalent, or is socially approved, then the people in that community will actually become violent. And you have something like fights, like wars, civil war, like we have crisis, because the only solution that they have thought about is violence. So we are saying that our context does not mean that if we use violence, if something works, don't fix it. If it's not working, fix it. Mr. Leo, it is not working. That is why we see the violence that is there today. Our children are much more informed. I mean, the fact that children are already fighting back teachers should bring some awareness about the stage of our development, and that we need to use better ways that fits our context. The context itself is our era.
It's just what if I get what you're saying is that corporal punishment worked in the past.
Maybe
today, yes, maybe it worked in the past, but today it's rather breeding.
It's not working.
Violence.
Teachers always used to carry this aura of honor. And we with ourselves, our parents show them kindness when we saw them on the streets. Now, if students are beginning to resist teachers, it's a sign that the times have changed, and that there is a red flag, it's a signal for us to step up and adopt other methods other than using confrontation and increasing violence and teachers losing their life. That is not what we.
It's like wanting to use the 1960 methods to engage situations of 2022.
Exactly.
Okay. This is a wake-up call to parents and teachers to rethink the discipline methods and not only depend on corporal punishment. Okay.
They not only depend on corporal punishment as a means to induce compliance in children, in children in general, be it little children or teenage children. They have to understand that our growth level is different, development is different. At a certain stage, you will act differently. At another stage, you act differently. A child of 3 years or 5 years does not act like a child of 10 years. And a child of 10 years does not act like a child of 17 years. Once you understand that at this stage, this is how this child reasons, you'll be able to know how to handle that child. When he crosses to another stage, that is maybe adolescence, you start understanding how adolescents behave. You will know how to tackle the problems that come with adolescence. And when he gets into adulthood, he will have that self-development or that judgment in order to know that this one is wrong and this one is right, because he has already gotten the modeling of that behavior from his own parents.
One serious negative outcome of corporal punishment is that it breaks attachment and spoils the parent-child relationship. So children can start having a feeling of rejection. And remember that if children have a feeling of rejection, they would like to seek acceptance somewhere. That may be out of your home, so you might really be getting out of control of your own child. The children will not want to come close again. They'll start avoiding you because they have fear in them. And if that happens, then social learning will be what they will learn. And of course, you will be responsible for what children learn out of your control. So you are putting yourself in a constant battle of struggling to bring back, to help them unlearn what they've learned through social learning, and you send them to society.
Let me take some messages. Good evening, dear panelists. Greetings, Mr. Kum. Nice program out there. If we teach our children with the word of God, Proverbs 22:6, corporal punishment will vanish. My neighbor dislocated his shoulder in the course of beating his child out of anger in a correction process. Fai John is writing from Banyu. Good evening to you, Fai John. Good evening, Mr. Leo and co. To me, I think there is no general formula for bringing up a child. You study your child and know which is good for him. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Corporal punishment both in school and at home, is good depending on the crime he or she commits, but should not be excess. I have seen a situation where a teacher beats a student and end up in a cell. Ghetto boy writing from Bomenda. Okay, please, Mr. Liu, I would love to know the difference between discipline a child and violence in children. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. I think violence is different from simple beating a child for correction. Linus is writing from Bomenda. Hi, good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Siri Juvett writing from Mancon, Bomenda. It is not eventually good to punish a child by flogging, because when you beat the child, all he or she will be used to the flogging. Better is punishment. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thanks for this topic of today. I'm Hassan writing from Fumban. I just want to say that your guests are explaining life in another continent. Many of us are better people today because of the corporal punishment we went through. Many children have gone wayward because of the absence of corporal punishment. Yes, maybe it worked in the past, may not necessarily work today. Greetings, Mr. Liu. I am Nigel Lawrence from Limbe. Adolf and Joy, I appreciate you guys. Honestly, as a parent, I think corporal punishment is still valid. What I may not support is that the intention should not be to selfish or instill pains. The child should understand that this punishment is for correction. Most of the violence in school is due to the fact that we have made them to feel that we don't have the right to punish them. I support corporal punishment. Killian from Bromenda says, good evening, Mr. Liu. I want to know from that man what is responsible for violence in our schools today in Cameroon. Is it corporal punishment or human rights? Killian, good evening to you. This one says, I've beaten my child with a machete, but his attitude didn't change. But I believe dialoguing with them is better. B. Emmanuel is writing from Tico. Thank you for that. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm writing from Tico. Those who are against corporal punishment are just trying to copy the European style. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm writing from Bamenda, Cisia 2. From Cisia 2. Some children need flogging and punishment to learn. Okay, we are out of time. The messages are just so many coming in. Let okay. Now, your organization, Community Action Scheme for Africa, Kasab. What are you guys actually doing in this direction?
Okay, we are trying to protect, we are into child protection. Okay. So we are just trying to create an environment where vulnerable groups, including children, can exercise their rights and enhance and promote their skills and their ability. And corporal punishment, us creating awareness against corporal punishment is just one of those measures that we are using in order for children to be able to feel free to have a nurturing environment where they can learn peacefully.
And what activities are you engaging to pass through your message? You're engaging parents and teachers?
Yes. Yes. Well, one of the things that we do, Mr. Liu, is to start by awareness raising. The next thing we have is to teach parents positive discipline. Sometimes a lot of parents, especially first-time parents, they have issues raising up children and keeping the family violence free. So we are mostly engaging parents, first-time parents, and also other parents, and supporting them throughout the child raising process with support skills and other positive discipline techniques that they can use to actually raise a child in a way that gives the child the freedom to succeed both in school and in life. What we are trying to do is to reflect that schools are supposed to be a safe and nurturing environment. Schools should be a safe space where children can learn and actually be able to succeed in life unhindered by any form of violence. Because violence, like we say, will actually break down and destroy, will damage the education of the child. Either resulting from injuries, or maybe from depression, or maybe from emotional or mental health issues. Yes, because children get traumatized when they are beaten. They get traumatized. And the truth is that there are other aspects like antisocial behavior. A child can start getting themselves involved in drugs and alcoholism. Mr. Leonard, there are children, adolescents, we have had situations of adolescents getting into a room and practicing orgies. We have seen that. School children leaving school and actually going to a room. This is because of the fear of violence. If a child comes late to school and know that they'll be beaten, and if she goes back to the home and will be beaten, what will do? She will actually join the friends somewhere. And that can result to other social
problems.
Issues.
Yeah. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu. And the panel, correcting a child with the corporal punishment is different from violence because there is this adage that goes as when you beat a child with the right hand, you hold him with the left hand. Saleh is writing from Mutengene. Good evening to you, Saleh. Good evening, Mr. Liu. That if we succeeded in life, it's because of corporal punishment that we should be condemning it. It's okay. I'm Sir Ewin Andrew writing from Douala. Good evening to you in the studio. We rarely had cases of students measuring up with their teachers, talk less of fighting them back. Then, thanks to corporal punishment, but since the start of this corporal punishment on children's stubbornness has increased. Okay. Now, you guys are operating in Limbe. We are out of time. You are meeting parents, you are meeting teachers.
Yes.
You are coming on TV to raise awareness. Are there some activities you're planning for the next week and the months ahead?
Yes, we are also holding workshops to talk about children, apart from corporal punishment, the safe online. There are a lot of violence perpetrated towards children online. When children are actually chatting with others because they want to have a life on social media and interact with their friends. But some people take advantage and they can bully children online and even do what we call sexting, exchanging messages that have sexual implications with children. This is also violence. And so we are actually looking at three aspects: corporal punishment, the safety of children online, and of course the safety of children in schools. So we have the Safe to Learn a project which is actually talking about children's safety in school, the Safe Online, and of course we are actually advocating for an outright ban of corporal punishment in schools.
Okay. We have come to the end of today's edition of the program. If you want to get in touch with them, please just ask for the numbers. I'm going to share it with you. They are from the Community Action Scheme Africa, CASAF, with head office in Limbe Street. So if you want to engage them, maybe bring them to your school to talk to your teachers or organize parents, maybe in a church, so that you talk to them on these issues. Just get to me, I'll get them connected to you out there. Thank you for coming all the way from Limbe.
Thank you, Mr. Leo, for having us.
Okay. Joy, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leo. Thank you for having us.
When next are you visiting?
We are always available, and of course, because we are doing a lot of advocacy on other issues, you have to be seeing us here so much often.
Okay, we want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of the program, and to you, Frank, who is producing the program. Stay blessed. Bye bye.